My wife's divorced friends persuaded her to stage a fake affair to test my loyalty and make me more devoted. Their plan backfired spectacularly when I decided to file for divorce instead. My wife, Emily, and I have been married for 8 years, and things have been solid. Not flawless, but solid. We both have demanding full-time jobs, settled routines, weekend plans, and the occasional date night when we're not exhausted. I thought we were in a good place, not like newlyweds, but the comfortable kind of good where you're at ease with each other and don't need constant affection to feel secure. Unbeknownst to me, Emily had been confiding in her divorced friends about our marriage, and they'd been feeding her toxic ideas about how I wasn't attentive or romantic enough, and how she needed to shake things up to make me value her more. I only learned this after the fact, which made it even worse because while I was enduring absolute torment thinking she was cheating, she was orchestrating this cruel charade with her resentful friends who couldn't stand that someone might have a stable marriage. It all started about 6 weeks ago when Emily's behavior changed drastically. She began staying late at work, coming home with a guilty yet oddly excited expression. When I'd ask about her day, she'd dodge the question or give vague answers. She started dressing fancier for work, spending more time getting ready, and wearing perfume she never used to wear to the office. Initially, I wondered if she was planning something sweet, like a surprise for our upcoming anniversary. But then she started getting texts at odd hours, snatching her phone quickly and flipping it face down. When I asked who was messaging her so late, she'd claim it was work or her sister but get flustered and defensive. Then came the night she came home near midnight, saying she'd been out with friends, but she reeked of men's cologne and her makeup was smudged. When I questioned her, she said she must have hugged someone goodbye but avoided my gaze. I'm not naive. I know what it looks like when someone's been with someone else. I started watching closely, and the red flags kept mounting. She took calls in another room, hanging up abruptly when I entered. She was oddly secretive about laundry, like she didn't want me to see certain outfits. She began showering right after work, which was new. And she kept mentioning a new coworker, Ethan, talking about how funny he was and how he'd helped her with a project. The Ethan mentions hit hard because she'd bring him up casually but then backtrack, as if she'd said too much. When I pressed for details, she'd get cagey, insisting he was just a colleague. But she'd already shared too many personal details, like how he rides a motorcycle, is recently divorced, and loves hiking, for him to be just a random coworker. I tried addressing her distant behavior, but she dismissed me, saying I was overreacting, that work was stressful and she needed space. The more space I gave, the worse it got, and the clearer it became that something was wrong. I'm not one to ignore obvious problems. The final straw came 2 weeks ago when she said she was dining with her sister. But I ran into her sister at the store, and she looked confused when I mentioned Emily was supposed to be with her. That's when I knew she was lying, likely meeting this Ethan guy. I confronted her that night, asking flat out if she was cheating. She got emotional, crying and insisting she'd never betray me, that she loved me. But she couldn't explain where she'd been or why she'd lied about her sister. When someone can't answer a simple question, you know they're hiding something major. I didn't sleep that night, replaying all the signs, the lies, and how she'd been treating me like a fool for weeks. I realized I couldn't live in this constant doubt, wondering if my wife was faithful. I decided I needed either the truth or to walk away because the uncertainty was destroying me. I considered hiring a private investigator for proof, but didn't follow through. Instead, I researched divorce lawyers to understand my options, preparing for the worst, rebuilding my life because my wife was cheating with some motorcycle-riding hiker from her office. Then last Tuesday, everything unraveled in the worst way possible. Emily's friend Rachel called me, drunk and babbling about how proud she was of Emily for following their advice to make me jealous, and how it was working because I was finally noticing her again. Confused, I pressed her to explain, and the whole scheme came out. Emily and her divorced friends, Rachel, Claire, and Amanda, had been plotting this fake affair for months to make me more attentive and romantic. They'd convinced her that the best way to make a man value his wife was to make him fear losing her, which is the most warped logic I've ever heard. Rachel revealed they'd even fabricated details about Ethan, a real coworker. Emily barely spoke to outside work and coached her on acting suspicious to make me think she was cheating. They found it hilarious that their plan was working and that I was acting like a jealous husband fighting to keep her. I hung up on Rachel and sat there for an hour, processing. I felt relief that she wasn't cheating, then confusion about why she'd do this, then a rage I'd never felt before, realizing my wife had deliberately tormented me for weeks. When Emily got home, I told her Rachel had spilled everything. Her face went pale, and she started crying, apologizing, calling it a silly prank that got out of hand, saying she planned to tell me soon. But I was livid, barely able to speak, and told her faking an affair isn't a prank, it's emotional cruelty. She tried explaining that her friends said our marriage was stale, that I took her for granted, and she just wanted more attention. She admitted the plan worked because I'd been more affectionate lately, which infuriated me more because she was right. I'd tried harder, thinking I was losing her. I told her what she did was manipulative and sick, that instead of talking to me about feeling neglected, she chose to make me think she was cheating and watched me suffer. She kept apologizing, saying it was a mistake, but it wasn't just a mistake. It was a deliberate campaign to mess with my head. She knew exactly why I was anxious and jealous because she caused it intentionally. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Every time I'd tried discussing her distance, she made me feel paranoid and insecure. Every time I asked about late nights or texts, she acted like I was controlling, when she knew her behavior was designed to make me feel that way. Worse, her friends found it funny, laughing behind my back about how gullible I was. And Emily was in on it, complicit in making me their joke. I told her I needed time to think, but I couldn't stay in the house. I spent the next hour packing clothes and essentials into bags and boxes. Unsure how long I'd be gone, I stored most of it at a nearby facility and took just enough to my brother's place. There, I grappled with what this meant for our marriage and whether I could ever trust her again. If she could lie to my face for weeks, watching me suffer, because her friends suggested it, what else might she do? My brother, parents, and some friends think I'm overreacting, that I should forgive her since she didn't actually cheat, just wanted attention. But they don't get how it felt to live those weeks thinking my wife was betraying me, believing our marriage was a lie. The emotional toll of thinking someone you love is cheating is the same, whether it's real or staged. I kept picturing her with this Ethan guy, questioning what I'd done wrong, how long it had been going on, whether she ever loved me or was just settling until someone better appeared. I was planning how to divide our belongings, where I'd live, how I'd tell people our marriage failed. All unnecessary torment caused by someone who claims to love me. Thankfully, logistics were simple since we rent our apartment, and the lease is in her name, so I had to leave. After 4 days at my brother's, I decided and met a divorce lawyer. When I told him the story, he said he'd never heard anything like it, but emotional manipulation was solid grounds for divorce, showing a fundamental lack of respect for me and our marriage. I went home and told Emily I'd filed for divorce. She broke down, screaming, crying, begging me not to leave, promising to do anything to fix it, swearing she'd cut off her friends and had learned her lesson. I told her the lesson should have been not to torment your spouse for amusement, a lesson adults shouldn't need. She rallied her parents, my parents, launching a campaign to change my mind, insisting divorce was extreme and we should try counseling. But I don't want to work through this. I don't want to be married to someone who thinks emotionally manipulating me is okay, and then acts like I'm unreasonable for not accepting it. Her friends Rachel and Claire called, saying I was too sensitive, that it was a harmless prank, and Emily wouldn't do it again. I told them if they thought this was harmless, they were more twisted than I realized, and they'd likely ruined my marriage for fun because they couldn't stand seeing someone happy when their own relationships failed. Rachel got defensive, saying Emily complained I wasn't romantic enough, and they were just helping her get what she needed. I said if Emily had issues, she should have talked to me, not conspired with her bitter friends to play mind games. Emily still doesn't seem to grasp why this was so wrong. She keeps emphasizing that she didn't cheat, like that makes it better, but doesn't understand that the emotional impact was identical to a real affair, and doing it deliberately makes it worse. I've been at my brother's for 2 weeks, and Emily texts constantly, begging me to come home, sending a long email about realizing her mistake and wanting counseling to rebuild trust, but I don't think trust can recover from this. How do I know she won't test me again if her friends suggest it? Everyone asks if I'm throwing away 8 years over one incident, but it's not one incident. It's weeks of calculated deception and the realization that my wife thinks so little of me she'd put me through hell to make me jump for her attention. The divorce papers were served yesterday, and Emily called, sobbing, begging me to reconsider, saying she'd cut off Rachel, Claire, and Amanda and do anything to regain my trust. I told her the problem isn't her friends, it's that she thought their plan was a good idea to begin with. Some think I'm too harsh, that I should give her another chance, but I keep replaying those weeks when I couldn't eat or sleep, consumed by fear of losing her, while she watched, knowing why, and let it continue. If she'd confessed after a few days, maybe I could have forgiven her. But she let it drag on for weeks, ready to go longer if Rachel hadn't slipped up drunk. That shows me who she really is. So here I am, getting divorced. And everyone thinks I'm insane for leaving over a harmless prank, but I know it wasn't harmless. It was a betrayal of what marriage should be. I'm not going to spend my life wondering what other tests she might devise. Update 1. I didn't expect this to resonate so much, and reading the comments and messages has been both affirming and overwhelming. Many of you get why this was such a big deal to me. People asked for more details about what Emily did and how her friends were involved, so I'll fill in the gaps since writing it out last time helped me process. Emily's friend group includes Rachel, divorced 2 years ago after her husband's affair, Claire, twice divorced and always complaining about her new boyfriend, and Amanda, whose divorce finalized recently after a separation. They meet every Thursday for wine night, which is really just them griping about men and relationships. I used to think it was harmless and encouraged Emily to go, thinking she needed friends and hobbies. Now I see they've been turning her against me for months, telling her I'm too comfortable and don't value her, urging her to stir things up to remind me what I could lose. Emily's actions over those 6 weeks were worse than I first described. She started working out more, buying new outfits, and when I complimented her, she'd act coy, saying she was just boosting her confidence, making me think she was dressing up for someone else. She also got critical, nitpicking my work attire, suggesting better haircuts, or asking why I didn't plan surprise dates anymore. I thought she was having a midlife crisis, but she was following her friend's script to make me feel inadequate. The calls and texts were staged. Rachel and Claire would message or call at odd times so she could act secretive. They even researched Ethan, digging up his motorcycle and hobbies on social media to give Emily convincing details to drop in conversations. The worst part? They had a timeline. They planned for this to last 2 or 3 months, with escalating phases. Phase 1 was being distant and secretive. Phase 2 was fake texts, calls, and late nights. Phase 3 was meant to involve staying out late with obvious signs of being with someone. Phase 4 was disappearing overnight, letting me think she was having full-blown affairs. Thank God Rachel's drunken call stopped it before phases 3 and 4, because I was barely coping with the first 2. Emily admitted they took photos and videos, documenting my distress and how their plan was working, laughing when I brought flowers or planned dates to save our marriage. That's what guts me most. They were recording my pain for entertainment, and Emily was not only okay with it but feeding them updates on my reactions. Some asked if she enjoyed it or felt conflicted. Looking back, I think she relished the control. She seemed energized, almost giddy, in a way I hadn't seen in years. I thought she was falling for someone else, but now I believe she enjoyed manipulating me. She'd come home with a sly smile, watching me try to piece things together, giving just enough to keep me guessing, but not enough to ease my fears. There were moments I caught her almost amused by my anxiety. Her friends coached her on gaslighting me. When I confronted her about lying about her sister, they told her to flip it, making me feel guilty for not trusting her. When I raised her distance, they advised her to call me needy, which she did, making this a coordinated attack to make me doubt myself. The more I learn, the angrier I get, and the surer I am that divorce is right. This wasn't a prank gone wrong. It was deliberate emotional abuse for their amusement. Emily leaves daily voicemails, begging me to reconsider, promising to ditch her friends and do anything to fix this. But the damage is done, and I can't come back from this. Her parents and sister ask me to give her another chance, saying she's learned her lesson. But this wasn't a mistake. It was a choice she made daily for 6 weeks, with chances to stop but didn't. Her sister called me cruel for not talking to Emily, and I said what's cruel is watching your spouse suffer, knowing you're causing it and continuing anyway. The divorce is progressing, and I'm more at peace with my choice. Daily, especially learning how calculated this was. The woman I thought I married doesn't exist. The real Emily thinks it's okay to torment someone she loves for fun. Some worry I'll regret this, but I feel clearer than ever, knowing I deserve better than someone who'd do this. Update 2. Things have gotten crazier since my last update, and I'm torn between laughing and screaming. I wanted to share, because new developments make this even more absurd. Emily, seeing begging wasn't working, switched tactics, claiming the fake affair was my fault because I wasn't attentive enough, and she felt neglected. She sent a long text yesterday saying she'd dropped hints for months about wanting more romance, which I ignored, so she had to do something drastic. She literally said, "You pushed me to fake an affair." The most unhinged thing I've heard. In her new narrative, this wasn't a prank, but a desperate attempt to communicate after I failed her subtler signals. She genuinely believes this justifies her actions. I showed the text to my lawyer, who shook his head, saying she's digging herself deeper by justifying it and blaming me. It gets worse. Emily's been telling coworkers and other friends I'm divorcing her for trying to spice up our marriage, painting me as jealous and controlling. My friend Tom, who works with her, pulled me aside, saying her office is buzzing about how I'm overreacting to harmless flirting. Tom knew it sounded off, so I told him the truth. He was stunned, saying Emily described it as playful teasing, not psychological manipulation. Now I'm dealing with Emily rewriting history, making me the villain. I'm sure her friends are backing her story since they devised it. I saved her voicemails from right after I learned the truth, where she admitted it was fake and apologized, knowing I'll need proof when she spins this narrative. Rachel, sobering, up and realizing she blew their plan, called to downplay it, saying I should give Emily another chance. Instead, she worsened it, revealing they planned this for 3 months, researching ways to make men jealous and choosing the fake affair for maximum impact. They had a group chat, Project Spark, sharing my reactions and celebrating my anxiety, which sickens me. Rachel said they were disappointed I took so long to confront Emily, thinking I didn't care enough to fight for her. They critiqued my performance as a worried husband, like I was a lab rat failing their test. Claire even suggested Emily go on a fake date to push me further, but they nixed it, fearing I'd hire an investigator. That they considered escalating shows their lack of boundaries. They'd have destroyed my mental health if Rachel hadn't slipped. I learned Emily's parents knew she was planning something to make me more romantic, but thought it was harmless surprises, not a fake affair. When they learned the truth post-filing, they were horrified, but still want me to reconsider, saying, "Divorce is extreme." I told her dad that Emily's actions were extreme, and my response matches the harm. I compared it to a stranger tormenting me for fun, saying he'd want charges pressed, and her being his daughter doesn't lessen the damage. He had no reply. The divorce is moving quickly since we have no kids and simple finances. I plan to relocate to a new neighborhood post-divorce to avoid Emily and her friends. Some ask if I miss her or doubt the divorce, but I miss who I thought she was, not who she proved to be. I'm relieved I learned this before kids or bigger commitments. If Rachel hadn't spilled, how long would Emily have let me suffer? The real Emily watched me lose weight, sleep, and sanity, enjoying it and reporting to her friends. That's not someone I can trust or stay married to. I'm done feeling guilty for protecting myself. Update 3. I thought I was done. But something so absurd happened yesterday I had to share. It's like Emily and her friends are determined to prove they're worse than I thought. The divorce is set to finalize next week, and I thought the drama was winding down, aside from Emily's occasional pleas. But her friends decided to make one last attempt to fix their mess. Claire called, wanting to meet to discuss Emily and reconciliation. Against my instincts, I agreed, curious what she could say to change anything. We met at a cafe, and Claire started with an apology for her role, admitting they went too far. I thought she might take accountability. Then she said she had a confession that might change my view on divorcing Emily. She looked dramatic, like she was unveiling a grand revelation. What she said made me laugh. She claimed they faked the affair because Emily suspected I was cheating, and they thought making me jealous would either prove my fidelity or expose an affair. Claire said Emily worried for months because I worked late, changed my phone password, and hit the gym more. They suggested the fake affair to test my loyalty. If I was cheating, I wouldn't care. If faithful, I'd fight for her, proving my love. I stared, incredulous at the nonsense. I asked why Emily never mentioned these suspicions during our divorce talks or apologies. Claire fumbled, saying Emily was embarrassed to accuse me without proof, so she kept it quiet and sought their advice. But I know it's a lie. I've never cheated, never been tempted. Working late was for deadlines, the new password was for work app security, and the gym was doctor's orders after a checkup. These are normal life things, not affair red flags, and Emily never questioned them. I told Claire her story was absurd, accusing her of rewriting history to make Emily the victim. She got defensive, insisting Emily was genuinely worried. Then she said even if Emily was wrong, the plan worked because I became more attentive, and our marriage could have been stronger if I hadn't overreacted. I told her our marriage would have been stronger if Emily had talked to me instead of torturing me, and her choosing manipulation over communication showed who she and her friends are. I told her to lose my number and tell Emily and the others the same. I only want to hear from my lawyer. Their attempts to manipulate me further cement my decision. I left her stunned at the table, drove around, grappling with their audacity. They went from, "It was a prank," to, "You made her do it," to, "We were testing your loyalty." It's a masterclass in gaslighting, almost impressive in its shamelessness. They'd rather invent new realities than take responsibility. I'm done being their punchline. The real victory is I'm free. Update 4. It's finally over. After 8 months of the most absurd, exhausting saga imaginable, the divorce is finalized. 8 months, and every day, Emily or her friends found new ways to test my sanity. Now I'm numb, but relieved. After Claire's loyalty test nonsense, I thought they'd peaked. But I was wrong. Emily pivoted to a mix of victimhood and cold, formal emails through her lawyer, demanding things like a waffle maker from our wedding gifts, after leaving sobbing voicemails weeks earlier. Her parents tried mediating, urging me to forgive because marriage is hard. I told her dad marriage is hard, but Emily's actions were a cruel game, and I'm done playing. That seemed to sink in, and they backed off. At the final mediation, Emily brought Amanda, a key player in Project Spark, for emotional support. Amanda sat there smugly, like a relationship guru. I told my lawyer I wouldn't speak with her in the room, and that was that.